let's do this thing. 2 years ago today, wow, okay. I flew away from this country to go to another country to go to school. Let's talk about it.
Should've tried to be a straight A student. If you are, then you think too much.
Before I start, just know that this will be a long video. I want to describe to the best of my ability, at least, everything that I did to prepare to study abroad, every emotion I felt along the way, and then try to find some teachable moments in the midst of all of that. Keep in mind that this is supposed to be a personal account, my experience, so it might not all apply to you. Regardless, I hope it's helpful to somebody. Additionally, this isn't going to be like a super clickable video. That's fine. I'm not going to do like a 5 top things about studying abroad or like give you a highlight reel. That's super fluffy. You can find that anywhere. What I'm offering are things that I haven't even shared with some of my closest friends, but I honestly think that this is going to bring value to at least one person, and that's why it matters to me to make this video right now. Also, thank you to Mille Cardon. I don't know if you're French, and that's not how the French would say it either, but that's how I'm going to say it as I'm trying to read it in French. Anyway, thank you, unpronounceable, for wanting to know literally every single piece of my experience abroad. I hope that this does your question justice from like 7, 8, 10 months ago. Finally, I'm totally going to get all like woo-woo vision boardy Oprah in this video. You don't have to listen to me though, that's fine. Absorb what you can vibe with, throw the rest away. It's cool. My experience studying abroad as a foreign exchange student happened back in the spring semester of 2016. I studied at the University of Hertfordshire, which is about 15 minutes north of London by train up in Hatfield, England. However, I started thinking about making the move about 3 years before that. Summer 2013, right after I graduated high school, I went on a 2-week trip all around Europe to sing in a choir. I was 17 and I was almost free reign in London. What? But we only spent 3 days there. That was a problem. I knew as soon as we left for sure that I wanted to get back to the city. And as soon as I got back home, I remember it super clearly. Actually, I was researching on my 18th birthday study abroad opportunities that Oklahoma State University offered for their students. P.S. I still did not have a dime to put towards earning a degree at that school at the time. Anyway, I saw University of Hertfordshire on the list, saw how close it was to London, and said, I'm going to study there my junior year, spring semester. Cool. So then, knowing that I was going to be studying abroad, I was sure to let all of my counselors know, hey, I'm going to be going away for a while, so let's make sure that my class schedule makes sense with that, okay? And I guess that's also like a practical tip. If you even have the slightest idea that you might want to study abroad, let people know, because they'll be able to help you out a little bit, at least when it comes to your classes and things like that. Like, I've heard of loads of people start super late on the whole planning part of their studying abroad experience and then realize way too late that they have to take all the really, really hard classes for their degree programs in a country where they should be living their best lives. So, don't do that. But by telling my advisors, I was able to kind of hedge a few different classes that were a little bit easier for my studies abroad. And then I kind of forgot about it. I kind of let it simmer on the back burner for a couple years until the spring semester 2015, 1 year before I would study abroad. I had to submit a formal request packet to go across the ocean, and that, let me tell you, that had everything. It was a big old essay written by yours truly, a full-on like example schedule for my new potential school, threw in my current academic transcript, and with those things I explained to them like why I would be such a great candidate to go study abroad. Tell them why I wanted to go, how it would benefit me, but also let them know that I'm not gonna totally defame the school by going to a different school. Did all that, finally I get my request approved, and they're like, yeah, go for it. I was well on my way to realizing a huge goal that I had set for myself. The summer before I actually studied abroad, I had to go through the entire application process with the new school. That was not short. I was always going through meetings with different counselors, advisors, and people in the study abroad office, making sure that the classes that I wanted to take would A, be good for me graduating, and B, actually transfer back to the school. And by doing that, I found out a couple like really killer things that would change the game in my experience abroad. One, I found out that for every class that I took over there, it was worth 4 credit hours at my home school. Meanwhile, back at my home school, 1 class is 3 credit hours. I could take 3 classes and be considered a full-time student. That's 12 hours back home, that's considered full-time. The other thing, I learned that different classes had different grading systems. For example, some classes might be graded 70% coursework, 30% exam, or 50-50 on other classes, but then there were also a handful that were 100% coursework, 0% exam. All homework, all essays, maybe some in-class quizzes, and not a single formal exam in the process. And that's when I realized that I could study abroad for an entire semester, only take 3 classes, and never take a single exam. What? That's what I ended up doing too. I ended up enrolling in 3 classes, 1 film class, and 2 little marketing classes. Then it was my Christmas break at the end there, and during that time I spent taking a couple of filler classes online so that I could have a nice round 30-hour school year total. It was also during that time that I started buying new clothes to be sure I wouldn't freeze when I was in England, and packing a lot. And I got sad. The afternoon that I flew out, actually exactly 2 years ago today, that was one of the saddest days of my life. And I might get emotional, I'm sorry. I remember we went to an In-N-Out Burger in Dallas to celebrate my departure, and it tasted like oncoming depression. And the next morning I landed in London at Heathrow Airport, and then I got on a shuttle bus to take me up to Hatfield, England. That's where I moved my checked suitcase, my carry-on, and my backpack into my new room for the next half a year. And I was completely and utterly alone. The Wi-Fi in the school was down at the time, too many new students, and I just broke down. I was reduced to my core, like who I am as a real person. It was just me, unfiltered by anybody else's external thoughts or feelings or projections onto me. And that was the beginning of one of the most important mental and emotional shifts that I've ever had in my entire life. And a quick aside based on that, anytime you have a major life change without a real safety net to fall into, you're gonna grow. You're forced to sink or swim, and that's a powerful motivator. Even in the confines of a school, one of those famous bubbles that I talked about in the last video, I still felt like I was falling right off the bat, and I had to learn to fly. But I was there, and I was doing exactly what I had set out to do 2.5 years prior. The next few months were equally extraordinary and exhausting. My classes were fine, my friends and our travels were incredible, but my will to leave the flat was at an all-time low. I don't know, maybe it was the shortage of sunlight or the surplus of sprinkling, but there were several days that I just did not leave. There were some days that the only thing that sustained me was the ritual of making my morning or like mid-afternoon coffee. And to be fair, I only had classes on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so then Sundays through Tuesdays were either spent, you know, going halfway across the continent or binge watching Chopped, which is pretty comparable. And I felt so weird. I was in this constant flux of either elation or depression. It was either sadness or euphoria. And I want to be the first to tell you, maybe not the first, but I want to make this clear, that's totally normal. And I'll add on this. Nobody can prepare you for how you react to this new situation, this new environment. It's really a culture shock, regardless of the new culture. And also, not everybody experiences it. So if you don't feel it, don't think that like it's a bad thing. Really try to take advantage of everything around you if you do not feel this way, actually. But then my highs were like off the chart. We went everywhere, or a lot of places. London, Oxford, Cambridge, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Copenhagen, Athens, Geneva, Barcelona, Paris, Amsterdam, Salzburg, Rion, Zermatt, Venice, Florence, Rome, Naples, Sorrento, Positano, Capri, Nice. Wow. It's lots of places. And then it makes sense that I would be a little down when I was back in my university town in Hatfield. Not to throw shade, but like, yeah. But if you were subscribed at the time, that's what you got to see. You got to see like the highs peppered into the low. And I'm super happy that I made those videos. I'll always be able to look back at that fondly, fondly, fondly. Also, David, what about your finances? Like, what, are you just on some rich trust fund kid? No, I was always super paranoid and anxious and cautious about my money. Anytime that I am in a time where I'm just spending money and not earning money myself, I feel super weird. So that was always, I didn't like that part. But I did remain solvent, and I graduated without a dime in debt. Super proud still. Rhetorical David, what about the classes? Were they any different? Of course they were. Across the pond, they were just like, they were chill, easy, whatever. We don't care about the grades. And really, they didn't. That was the weird thing. Like, I needed to make firsts, I needed to make American A's, and they just didn't care. They're like, well, why do you need to? You're gonna graduate, right? The paper's all that matters. I'm like, you are not in America, sweetie. Come on. Also, I had to keep converting my grades that I was making. It's like a 0 to 100 failing to excelling grading system. Convert that into America, which is like 60 to 100. Anything below a 60 is failing, anything above is passing. It's not the same. Anyway though, that stuff is, that's the fluff. I don't want to talk about that. Okay. I had a few fears going into my studies abroad, but by far my biggest one was super abstract. I wasn't afraid of getting like lost or stranded or mugged or whatever. I had my mom to worry about those things for me, it's fine. But I was absolutely mortified at the idea of becoming the person who you could never tell once studied abroad. Like when you're talking to a boring person in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and then they reveal to you later in the conversation that, oh yeah, I studied abroad once. I spent 2 years in Italy. And you're like, what did you do with your life that you're not like living a life that somebody that had once done that should be living? And I guess at the core of it, my fear then was, and still is today, of becoming a boring person. That freaks me out a lot, actually. And I'm happy to say that right now I'm still doing a lot of not boring things, so my fear has yet to be realized. Let's keep it that way and move on. Knock on wood. That one's gonna bite me later. Probably the biggest takeaway in this video is that in this weird cosmic fabric in which we live, we have no control, or like very little control. But we do have control over what we put out into that fabric. I started telling people that I was gonna study abroad long before I had the resources to do so. I changed my iPhone background to a cool looking street in London and looked at it every single time I unlocked my phone for years until I finally stumbled upon it on a walk in real life. Also, the day after I found that iPhone background in real life, I changed it to one of the Hollywood sign behind a cool street lined with palm trees. Now, less than 2 years later, I am within walking distance of that view. Set your intentions, make a goal, and don't plan too far out in advance. Another thing, studying abroad is not for everybody. Going in, I was confident and determined that my ability to stay flexible and thrive in the face of ambiguity, that would somehow allow me to adapt to a new environment. And that ended up being true, but it was still incredibly hard. And I'm not trying to say like, ooh, look, I'm great, and even I struggled a bit, but I mean, kinda. Overall, studying abroad was an incredibly positive experience for me. I was offered a unique opportunity to look at the world through a fresh set of eyes, and I am so glad that I took that opportunity. And the people that I met along the way inspired me to do so much more than I ever thought I could. Those people were the nails in the coffin that finally allowed me to see show business as a viable career and not just one of a Midwestern pipe dream. There's a kind of beauty and blind optimism in that, and that's really all I'm trying to promote here. And I really hope you got something out of this. This video isn't for everybody, but I hope it finds those who it is for. That said, I'll totally answer any questions that you might have about being an exchange student in the comments down below, so please ask away. If you want to share the love, go ahead and click the like button on the video itself. Subscribe for the vibe of the channel. Leave all of your questions and qualms in the comment section down below. And with that, I'm gonna go. So yeah. Wow. That was a big one. That's also a big one. Gross. Bye?